Okay, terrific. Got it. Thank you. So, Jared, thank you so much for agreeing to do this for us. It was so generous of you. You guys might have heard him say that he grew up in Michigan and I'm from Indiana. So we were practically neighbors, but like a generation apart. But Jared went from overweight to Iron Man. He's been featured on CNN. He's been on the cover of Men's Health magazine. He's now a Beachbody trainer. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for our guest, Jared Sklar, tonight. They can't hear you because you're all muted. Yeah. but you can see him, and we're glad you're here, Jared.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. If you've taken my class or if you haven't taken my class, whether you've had the bike or not, it's just such a pleasure to be here and an honor. It's funny, I joke around, like it's cool to have an actual dialogue instead of me just like yelling at you guys all on the bike. So I'm really looking forward to this and meeting you guys, obviously on a more personal level than just, on the podcast and things like that. So thank you so much for having me.
And Kelly, you're keeping an eye on the chat so that you can watch any questions that come up and we'll get those at the end. So Jared, we're looking for you to just spill the beans tonight and answer some questions for us. So you went from overweight to Iron Man. Was there a certain thing that happened in your life that kind of was a turning point for you?
Yeah, it's crazy because my whole life, pretty much, I was overweight, all throughout pretty much my childhood, high school, through college, and then even after college. And so it was interesting because I was always athletic. I played team sports growing up. I was a baseball player, hockey, a little bit of football. And although I was active, I was overweight. And so it really came to a head in 2018. And I was in this flag football league out here in LA. And within like probably like a 6-week period, I had pulled my hamstring like 4 or 5 times, really, really bad, playing football. And so I went to the doctor because it just like was not getting any better. It was like every week I pulled it and then I would like sort of recover a little bit. And then the next week it would just get worse at my next game. And so went to the doctor and basically was like, you need to do something that's low impact, that's going to help strengthen your hamstring. Otherwise it's just going to keep getting worse. And I always like to preface this by saying, I never in a million years would have thought that I would ever like cycling, like ever. Like if you've ever been to LA or like, traffic is really bad in LA. So there tends to be a lot of road cyclists on the road as well, because like people don't want to be driving when they can avoid it with the bike. And so I would be driving along and I'd be like, who are these like people wearing spandex taking up the entire road, like, type of deal. So I was like, I like to preface this by saying like, I never in a million years thought I would like cycling. And so my doctor recommended I get into it because it was low impact. And around that same time, I was at home one day. I wanted to have some lunch. And so I was working from home at the time. And I opened up my fridge and there were 4 different pizza boxes from 4 different restaurants in my fridge. And that was like a light bulb moment where I was like, something's got to change with my diet because it's bad, right? Like I was 100 pounds overweight, and this was like a gleaming situation where it was like right in my face. There was no way around it. It was literally the boxes were taking up my entire fridge. So I got into intermittent fasting. And so like these 2 sort of events happened at the same time, where I changed my diet. And then I also was basically prescribed the bike from my doctor. And so after a month, I was a member of a local LA Fitness. I knew that there was a cycling room at the gym, but I was really honestly intimidated by cycling and like joining like a group class. I just didn't really feel like it was going to be my vibe. I just wasn't really interested in it, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to the gym during the off hours where I know there's not a cycling class. I'm just going to sit on the bike for 45 minutes to an hour, 5 to 6 days a week, and see what happens. And so a month later, I lost 20 pounds, and with the cycling and with the diet change. And so, although my doctor prescribed a month on the bike, I basically was like, you know what, if I can lose 20 pounds in a month, let's see how far I can take this thing. Like, why do I have to turn back? And so 6 months later, I lost 100 pounds, and basically became unrecognizable. I was just like a completely different person mentally and physically. Like it was just like a total like light switch moment. And I'll never forget, like I went through this transformation. I had just switched employers. I moved to another company, and like right around the same time. And so I lost the weight, and I went and I saw one of my old coworkers like out on the street one day, and I was talking to her, and like 5 minutes into the conversation, she was like, "Jared, is that you?" And so literally she was having a conversation with me for like probably around 5 minutes, not even understanding who I really was. That's how unrecognizable I was to her. So, that was a moment where I was like, this literally kicked off and changed my entire life really. And it all started with an injury, which is like the craziest thing that like I look back 4 years ago, and something that you would think, or like, even like my prior like mindset, right? Like something that I would view as limiting actually like helped catapult me in this direction.
Wow. So now your girlfriend, did she make these changes too?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the things, like, she's been my rock throughout this entire thing, right? Like having somebody there beside me. And, oh my dog, I thought it was her. It's actually my dog that just came up over here. He's probably like, I was your rock as well. No, but yeah, she, like, having her in my corner throughout this entire thing was so influential, and honestly I wouldn't have been able to do it without her, right? It really is a team effort, and she made, she obviously didn't have the weight loss that I had. Like she obviously didn't have that sort of like room to make that change, but she did make a really big change in her lifestyle as well that had lasting effects mentally as well. So it's crazy how like one person, or I guess like going at a goal like this as a team can really help lead to success in the long run, and make sure that you're not falling back on those old habits.
So I'm curious, how did CNN and Men's Health Magazine find you?
I feel like it's so weird to think about right now, but like every single thing that has sort of like happened to me that like I think back to like a big, like talking about Beachbody, or even like any of the other things that have happened throughout the last 4 years, happened by random chance, or just things magically lining up. So the story behind Men's Health, I was in a softball league, like I mentioned, and a girl who was friends with somebody on my team, wasn't even like on my actual team, like showed up to one of our games one day, and we like went to grab some drinks after the softball game, and we got into talking, and she's like, oh, like somehow it randomly came up that a friend of her friend, so this is like three connections, worked for Men's Health, and posted on Facebook and was like, does anybody know somebody who has lost a lot of weight recently? And during our conversation, we had like basically mentioned, or it came up in conversation, that I had lost about 100 pounds, like basically within the last 6 months. So she put me in contact with this friend of a friend of a friend. We got into talking, and Men's Health did like a short article on me. And then fast forward like 6 months down the line from that, CNN saw that article, and they ended up sending in like a film team out from Atlanta to interview me. They did like a short spot on like intermittent fasting. And then they actually also, like, random chance, it was supposed to just be a film type interview, but somebody within CNN was out here for another story. But just because they were both on the same flight, the person who was out here for the other story was like, oh, I might as well just like tag along. So that person ended up writing an article for me, or about me, and it ended up like trending #1 on Apple News, like the type of thing where like you pull up your phone and like scroll to the left, and like there's like the top news articles. Like my face was on that, which was like so it's so weird, like thinking back, and it's just, I feel just so lucky, right? Like I was at the right place at the right time, or just like these things. And I'm so grateful every single day that things sort of align the way that they have, because I mean, somebody asked me recently, like, what does your 4-year plan look like? Like, what are you looking for in the next 4 years, or like, what are some goals that you have? And to be honest, I look back to myself 4 years ago, and there's no way that I could, like, so many random things had to happen to get me to this spot right now. So like I'm just like enjoying the ride and just loving building these connections with everybody at Beachbody, because it's blown me away on a daily basis, just being able to connect with everybody and share and see everybody else's stories and see the goals that they're setting and help them get to that point. Even if, you know, my point is just like a small point in their pathway, like this is what I live for. So, yeah, I just feel so grateful for this whole experience. I thank my lucky stars every single day that, things have sort of led me in this direction.
You mentioned the connections, and a lot of the people on this call tonight are people who have ridden with you. If you've had a ride with Jared before, wave and let him see who you are, that you've been on one of his rides. And if you're looking forward to being on one soon, wave. Oh, that's all of us plus some more. So now tell me about this bread thing. You get this bread shirt on, and there's these hats and shirts available with bread on them. And I hear you say, get this bread. Tell us that story.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that, like, as an overarching theme in my life over the last 4 years, it's that, like, saying yes or like one small thing can lead to a much larger thing, right? So like just taking as much momentum and just going with it. And so the get that bread thing started off as a joke originally, which is so funny to like look back and think about. You know, as I was going through my transformation, I, you know, as like I alluded to earlier, pizza was my jam. Like, who doesn't love carbs, right? Like I love it. And that's not to say that there's, you know, not a place for carbs in your diet. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But like at the time, like, obviously it was a main thing for me, right? So like my thought process, anytime I was going to do like a hard set at the gym, or, you know, at that time I was road cycling, like anytime I was climbing like a big mountain, I'd say, let's get that bread, like insinuating like, let's earn this thing. Like, let's push as hard as we can. So like later we can have the cookie or the pizza or whatever. And so it started off as a joke, and, you know, I'd be riding consistently with my friends, and eventually it caught on and kind of became like my battle cry. Like I'm like, it's like self-talk, right? Like everybody has self-talk. For me, it was like, okay, let's freaking do this thing. Let's get that bread. And so like, it just kind of caught on like wildfire. And now to the point where like this Friday, I'm going to be launching a website that has let's get that bread merch. So like, it's just like the craziest, it's so crazy, but I'm having fun with it, right? Like, I would never in a million years would have thought that I would, you know, be doing something like this. But people seem to be like latching onto it, and you know, that's at least what it seems like on my end, and I'm just love that, right? It's just like the coolest thing to see, you know, something that you seem sort of like morph and maybe provide a little bit of extra benefit or, you know, extra motivation in their lives as well. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Fun thing. By the way, if you have questions that you wanted to ask, put those in the chat, and Kelly's taking a look there, and then we will get to those here in a little bit. How did you get connected with Beachbody?
Yeah, so that was, I mean, when you talk about like the stars sort of aligning, it's a long story of a lot of things happening, but the quick version of it was, I was teaching at LA Fitness. The pandemic happened, and so I wasn't able to teach on the bike for basically a year. And so during that time, my girlfriend, we were kind of talking about before, she was a member of a circuit gym, and because that circuit gym was also kind of like closed / like in like limbo a little bit, one of her trainers was training people outside, like, you know, in like on the beach and like out in outdoor spaces, like basically during COVID. And so we were getting trained at the park one day, and she mentioned just like off the cuff that she somehow got contacted from this company called Beach Cycling, which you came to when you're out here, but basically it's a cycle class on the beach. And I was like, wait a second, like, I teach cycling, like I would love to do that. And so literally the next week I was teaching on the beach, with Beach Cycling. And so I was teaching there for a couple months, and like I never really have like a social media following or anything like that. But I guess like through the grapevine, Angel over at Beachbody found me through beach cycling. And the craziest thing about that story is I also have a full-time job. I'm in recruitment for my quote unquote 9 to 5. And so at that time in June, July, we were basically in a hybrid environment, but we were only going into the office like 1 day a month, like even at that, like rarely going into the office. And one day I was in the office and I was scrolling along my Instagram at lunch and I get this message from Angel. And most of the time when I would get a message from somebody I don't know, I figure it's like spam, you know what I mean? Like buy this many likes, buy this many followers type of deal. So like I would just scroll and just delete like all these messages. But because I was in the office that day, I was like, you know what, I'm bored. I'm just gonna like read these messages and see what's up. And she had mentioned Beachbody. And I wasn't like I had some interaction with Beachbody in the past. My first, I guess, like clue into Beachbody, I was in high school. I'll never forget. I was in high school. I was a sophomore, and my buddy, I was on the baseball team. After practice, my buddy Joe Gonzalez was like, "Hey man, I saw this commercial for Insanity. Let's get freaking ripped. Let's get swole. Let's like come over to my place after practice and let's do this thing." And I did it, and like it kicked my butt, and I quit. Like that was just like my mindset at that time. Like whatever. So anyway, so I had known Beachbody, and I was like, you know what? Like I'm in the office today. I have 20 minutes to kill on the way home for my commute. Like I might as well take a phone call, right? And so took the phone call with Angel, was absolutely blown away by everything she was telling me about Body. 2 days later, I auditioned, and I think it was like 5 or 6 days later, I had gotten the offer. So it's so crazy. Like, I don't know. It's nuts. Like I just like every single day I tell that story, I'm just like, I am blown away that even happened. I don't even know really how she found me. And it's just crazy because like, you know, some of the other instructors are sort of like connected through their, past history at Equinox. A bunch of them were at Equinox before. And I'm kind of just like this random dude that they found on Instagram. And I'm just like, I don't know how this happened. And I'm just like, I'm so thankful. I meant to ask Angel today when I saw her, like how she found me, but I'm going to, probably on Thursday when I see her. But yeah, it's just it's mind blowing, and like people say right place, right time, and like for my whole life, I've always not been in the right place at the right time. You know what I mean? And so for whatever reason, I just feel lucky to have been introduced to this. And by the way, the community, I mentioned it before, you guys freaking blow me away on a daily basis, right? Like you guys motivate me to be the best version of myself that I can be. I've sort of spoken about it if you've taken my classes before. Like public speaking has always been one of my biggest fears. Like if you've taken one of my classes, like before I got on with the podcast and everything, when I was just teaching to a camera, I was uncomfortable. Like looking back, it's only 6 months ago, but like just so uncomfortable. And like you guys have given me not just the confidence, the motivation to be able to like, get on something like this and speak to all of you, right? And so like people have said like, oh, like you've helped me with XYZ, and like you guys have helped me in reality. Like you guys, for real, like I've said it a million times, I feel like I'm being a dead horse. So I'm just so thankful for this whole thing. Like I wasn't sure what I expected, but totally blew me away.
That's interesting that you're getting energy from the cyclers who are riding with you. But when you're in that studio, unless you turn and look at them, you're just like looking at a crew and some cameras and some people, the crew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like, how do you get yourself fired up for that, where you behave in an engaging way when there's not people engaging right in front of your eyes?
Well, I mean, when people like you and Sierra and everybody else are just like vibing and bringing like unbelievable amounts of energy, it's hard to not like match that or at least be elevated on my side. But like what I would say, and I'll give you like sort of a prime example. So 2 weekends ago, I did this. I was raising money for pancreatic cancer research. It's a charity that means a lot to me. And so for that, I was running the 4x4x48, the David Goggins challenge. The long and short of it is I ran 48 miles over 2 days, which was like, it was crazy. My foot was really bothering me, and I pushed through it. And a lot of that was you know, thanks to the support that I was getting from all of you, which was amazing. But so I did that over the weekend. And then last Monday, right after, I had a class. And to say that I was like sore the entire day and exhausted, because it's like sleep deprivation, right? Like it's every 4 hours you're running 4 miles. And so you're not getting a lot of sleep. And so I was just exhausted all day Monday. But the second I got to the studio, it was like a light bulb switch, like, or a light switch turned on. Like the energy that I get from everybody on that stage, and just like seeing everybody show up, just like all positive, everybody pulling in the same direction. It's unparalleled. Like you don't get that anywhere else, like no other platform. And that's not to knock any other platform, because like, you know, some of these other platforms are amazing, but like my experience getting on that stage with, it's not just me, it's literally with everybody. And I just feed off of that so much. And it's been incredible to be like totally transparent and honest. Like it's a feeling that I never thought I would ever get. And I'm just trying to live in the moment and take every single moment for you know, everything that I can.
You said be transparent. So give us a little peek behind the curtain. What does your life look like off camera? You mentioned that you have a 9-to-5 job.
Yep. Yeah. So I am a software engineering recruiter. So I'm like an external recruiter for, you know, medium to large size businesses. I help with getting them recruitment, help with software engineering. And so to be totally honest, my boss, luckily, I've built a good enough relationship with him where I can go off and teach classes in the middle of the day and things like that. But it's a juggling act, right? And that's something that I learned from my training for the Ironman. If you're not familiar with an Ironman, it's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and then a marathon after. So I did that in November. And that experience really taught me how to juggle things, right? Because we all have the same 24 hours in the day. Like how, if it's important to me, like I need to find a way to make this happen. And so like that experience, waking up at 4 a.m., working all day, teaching it body, and then, you know, going to sleep at night, or working out at night and then going to sleep, like just being very organized in the way I do things prepared me for this. Right. So, but I'm the type of guy where like, I love, like this stuff motivates me. Like this, I love living in this space. And, you know, eventually I'd like to be able to do beach body and that sort of thing full time. Maybe that's on the horizon, but, you know, it's one of those things where I'm just loving this right now. Like I say it all the time. I've said it a million times already, but like, I just love every second of this. And I'm just riding the wave.
You just recently moved to a new home. How's the unpacking coming along?
It's been hectic. But if you've taken my class, what was it, last week? I was talking about the fridge with the that I got that has a water dispenser and an ice dispenser, which like made the entire move worth it. I feel like I've like come up. Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, like unpacking has been a struggle, but we're like almost there. We have some things that we're like, we have to like get the TVs mounted and things like that. But for the most part, it's at least comfortable. There's not boxes everywhere, which is great.
Very good. Kelly, are there some questions from the chat that you wanted to chime in with? I have a couple of closing questions, but I wanted to make sure you get a turn.
You actually ended up answering a bunch of them. I'm trying to see just with your questions. Laura asked you, check out the podcast before the class starts. So like, do they give you any info on certain people if there's birthday, like that you're supposed to call up on screen? Give us some tips.
Yeah, sometimes. So it depends. So like, for instance, they do have like, if you let them know it's your birthday, they'll often like tell me either beforehand or during the class. Sometimes, so like, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, they had Amy and Eileen, who are sisters. One lives in California, the other one lives in Florida, and they put them on the screen right next to each other because, you know, they were live. And so they gave me the heads up before class that was going to happen. But as far as like giving me a heads up, they don't, you know, they're getting everything set up and all of that. So most of the time they don't necessarily give me a heads up, but the best advice I would have as far as like getting a shout out or things like that is just like shoot me a message on Instagram. I try to make it myself like as available as I possibly can. So like just give me a heads up and I'm happy to, like, obviously it's a little bit difficult sometimes when like there's people all over the place, but like especially if you message me, I'll try to do my best and give a shout out and things like that for sure.
I muted myself. I don't do that very often. How is body different from teaching live in a gym, like teaching on the body format that, or I mean, stage, I meant.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. Like I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. Obviously, like being in a live class with like you can see everybody's energy, which is great, but there's something about like when they count down at, like on body, and like there's no experience like it. Like it literally is a class of its own. And I've even talked a couple of weeks ago, it's like body is not a cycle class. Like I've been and taught a million cycle classes. Body is something completely different, and it's its own animal. Like you can have somebody in California biking right next to their sister in Florida. Like there's nowhere else that you can get something like that, right? So it's hard to quantify just how awesome that is, at least from my perspective, right? And the thing is, like, you know, cycling is my thing, right? It literally saved my life. I have a family history of heart disease on my dad's side of the family, and so it saved my life. And so like I try, like I mentioned earlier, like it's the last place I ever would have found myself or thought I would find myself, and it has had this positive effect on my life. So like the more people that I can help share that with, like that's my goal, right? Like this isn't like, I don't know, and it's not a job to me. Like it's not like something that like it's not about the money or anything like that. Like this is my passion. This is what I freaking live for. And so like being able to share the bike, but not only that, like body has all these different formats, right? So say the bike isn't your thing, like that's cool. Guess what? We have a HIIT class. We have a body camp class. Like we have all these different classes for everybody. And so just like getting the more people we can get active and helping them to find what their passion is, like that is the coolest thing about body to me. Like there is literally something for everybody. And that's the most exciting thing, I think.
I love it. Sierra asked, what gets you out of bed on the hard days? Do you do any type of personal development?
Yeah. So first things first, personal development. Like, if you've never taken one of my classes before, like motivational, like listening to motivational speakers and like doing different sort of motivational things, like that is my jam. Like that is what gets me going. Like bringing something different to the table, looking at something through a different lens. That's what really excites me. And I get that from a lot of like, I read a lot of like self-development type of books. So, you know, whether it's David Goggins, like I referenced earlier, or there's a book called The Impossible First, which is about Colin O'Brady, who was the first person to cross from one side of Antarctica to the other unsupported, which is a crazy, crazy book. There's that. I mean, there's so many of them that I could reference right now, but like I love that sort of stuff, right? Like seeing what the like human potential is and not putting up that roadblock in your life, right? Like in my previous life, I was the type of person where the second there was any sort of trouble, I would wave the white flag and give up, right? And so just finding different avenues or different ways to think about things mentally, and changing your mindset is huge for me. As far as what gets me out of bed every day, I think that the biggest thing, and it sounds cliche, but for me, it's having a purpose-driven why, right? Like it's one thing to have a why, but there's got to be a purpose behind it. So for me, I kind of talked earlier about like helping share my love for cycling and fitness for everybody. Like that's a big thing, and like helping people get to their goals. But also I mentioned the 4x4x48, right? So like I wear this, must have broken off. Okay, well, I don't have it on right now, but I usually wear this purple pancreatic cancer wristband every single day. My grandfather passed away from pancreatic cancer, and so like raising money for that charity is especially over the last couple months, was something that was so huge for me. And it's a constant reminder for me in my day-to-day why I show up, right? So like when you get out of bed and like have that fresh in your mind, like why you're doing something, that's great. But when you're going throughout your day-to-day, it's so easy to forget that. Like it's so easy to just like get caught up in the grind of day-to-day life. And so for me, having the wristband on is so important, because it's like literally a reminder every single time I look at my wrist, like, okay, this is why I fight. This is why I show up every single day. And for anybody else, it could be, you know, a background screen on your phone, or I don't know if people carry pictures in their wallets anymore, but you know, things like that, you know what I mean? And so like having that, you know, that constant reminder of why you show up and why you do what you do, like there's no replacement for that. Because motivation can only go so far. It's got to become your identity. It's got to become your lifestyle. So.
Okay, I have one more question, then that's just mine. Then I'll let Kim wrap up. Be honest, who's the biggest diva at Body?
Who's the biggest diva?
It's Joel, isn't it? It's Joel.
I've never, to be totally honest, I have not even met Joel in person yet. Which it's weird. It's like the weirdest thing, because
he moved, right? When you probably.
Yeah, he just moved. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing, because like Sean T is another person, right? So like I have like messaged back and forth with Sean T a bunch, and like, you know, but like it's the weirdest thing, because like I feel like I know everybody so well, but like there's some people who I've never even met. And so like it was funny. I ran into Jericho today at the stage, and she was just like such a sweetheart. I met her husband, but it's so funny because we met, it was like right at the beginning of my teaching. I wasn't even teaching like live classes. It was just VODs. And that was the first time I met her. We were in like the warm-up room, and she's like working on this on her laptop in the warm-up room. I was like, oh, like this is so exciting. And she's like, don't tell anybody this. Like it hasn't been announced to anybody. You're like one of the only people I'm telling you this. But like me and Elise are working on this new program. And this was what, 6 months ago. And I was like, oh my God, that's like so exciting. And it was like the first time I met her. And then like I saw her today, like in passing, I was like, this is so crazy. Like the first time we met, you were working on this, and now like all of this stuff is being pushed out for Fire and Flow, and it looks just like so cool. So like it's just, I don't know, it's just like so amazing to see the work that everybody's been putting in, and the results. Obviously, you know, job one was killing it and is continuing to kill it. We have this new program with Autumn, and so I love that everybody brings something new to the table. That's like the biggest thing. It's like I was talking to Jeffrey Scott, who's like one of the heads of like the fitness and nutrition arms of Beachbody today, and he was telling me, he's like, you know, when we brought everybody on board, like it's interesting, like having a new platform like this, everybody is sort of like put in, and it's like, you know, trying to find their way and see what happens. And he's like, it seems like everybody's like blossoming right now. Like everybody has their own personality that's finally starting to come out. And it's true. Like everybody has their own style, which is so cool to see and see everybody evolve the way that they have, at least during my time there. And obviously like I'm brand new to this thing. Like I feel like I'm catching on to this rocket ship that's been like flying for the last, you know, 15, 20 years. And so it's just really cool.
Did anybody else notice he skirted the question? Kidding.
I'm trying to really.
Just kidding. We want you to keep your job.
No, it is. Okay. I would say the biggest diva. I don't have it.
It's okay.
I was going to try to come up with something.
I'll message you on Instagram and you can tell me directly, and I won't share it with all my followers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim. Laura's going to ask questions all night. So Kim, you wrap it up. She just wants to.
Sure, Jared.
And by the way, like
I
have as much time as you guys want. Like I cleared my schedules for this. So like, don't think that you have to like wrap anything up or anything like that. If you do have any other questions or anything, like I'm here for you guys.
Okay, cool.
Thanks. Is there anything that you wanted to share that we didn't already ask?
You know, I kind of touched on my Ironman. And that was something that was like one of the biggest moments of my life. Like I've never worked so hard for one singular moment in time in my entire life. Like I literally worked for a year to get to that finish line. And so it taught me so many things. I talked earlier about like being able to juggle things and making sure that you're balancing things with time and things like that. But the day of the actual race was like the craziest thing ever. I'm not sure if anybody's been to Cozumel, but it's an island off of Mexico. I did not get the Ironman tattoo. I was thinking about it, but I didn't do it. But anyway, so it was raining like crazy thunderstorms the entire week leading up to the race. Like so bad that like you can't even go out. Like it was terrible. Like I don't even know. I think it was like 4 inches per day, which is like, it's crazy. So I'm like, we get there a couple of days early and we're just like watching terrible thunderstorms the entire week. And I'm just like, this is going to be a slugfest if it even happens. And so the morning of, it's pouring rain. We're like waiting to jump into the water. And I'm watching people sort of like jump in. Everybody has their own technique. Some people are like diving in. Some people are kind of just like scooting in on their butts, whatever, into the water off the dock. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like jump in and we'll get the race on track. Right. So I decided to like pencil dive and just like kind of jump in. And I thought it was deeper than it was. It was only like 3 feet deep. And so immediately the first second of the race, I like banged my ankle and like cut up my foot. Literally the first second into what eventually would be a 10.5-hour race for me. And so I'm just like, okay, like this is how today's going to go. I'm going to kick through it. We're just going to make the most of it. Like this is a situation we'll move through. I finish the swim, get out of the water, and I jump on my bike, and it is pouring rain, like literally terrible. And so the island over the first, like it's 112 miles on the bike. The first 70 miles is 2 trips around the island. I get into the third lap, and it had been raining all day. And so the roads start to like fill up with water essentially. And so there's puddles everywhere, so deep that like my foot like plunges into the water every single pedal stroke. That's how deep it was. And so I come up to this one puddle, and I thought it was just like a regular, like one of the other puddles that's just like flat road. Turns out it was like a huge pothole that had filled with water over the course of the day. I was going 20 miles an hour, hit the pothole, fly off my bike over the handlebars. I'm like skidding across the concrete. That was the first bike accident I've ever been in. The guy behind me was riding too close. He hit me from behind, flew off of his bike. His bike was totaled. He had to quit the race because his bike was unrideable. And so I get up, I'm like checking myself. The adrenaline must have been running because like I didn't feel it at the time, but I was like really scraped up and like bleeding everywhere. But I was like, okay, I'm okay. And I checked my bike, and I'm not sure if you've ever seen like a triathlon bike, but the way it's set up is like there's aero bars, right? So you like ride like this and hold on like this, so you go straight forward with aerodynamics. My aero bars, because of the accident, were faced like this. And so the final 40 miles of the race, I had to ride like sideways going straight. And so I was just like, okay, like if my bike is rideable, I'm going to fight through and make this happen. And so I finished the bike, and then as I'm running, everybody's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And it's because like my entire like tri-suit was like torn up and I was bleeding everywhere and I had no idea. Anyway, so I ended up finishing. And the biggest thing to me is like, if you have a goal in mind, like you have to be able to adapt, right? Like there's things that are going to pop up along the way, whether it's a race like that or any other goal that you have in life. Things are going to come up, and life is all about how you adjust in that situation. And like, there's a way forward, no matter as long as the bike isn't broken and totaled, like there's a way forward. Right. And so I think back to that moment all the time where I'm standing there in the rain and standing next to my bike. Whatever situation I'm in that moment, like, you know, present day, if I have a difficult situation, nothing is going to compare to riding through the pouring rain on a broken bike, and then ended up having to run, 26 more miles after that. Right. So like I lean on that all the time. And today was a prime example. I'm not sure if anybody here took my noon class, the 12 p.m. class. We have a speaker or like a headphone thing where I can hear the music playing. Well, I guess I sweat too much or something, but during the class, the earpiece stopped working. And so I'm like coaching through intervals, and there's no music whatsoever. And I was just like, I'm not sure if it came off this way, but it felt like I came off at least kind of smooth. I like called over one of the producers. I was like, hey, like, can you fix my music or whatever? And like, they ended up bringing me a new earpiece. But like, as it was happening, I was, oddly enough, I was thinking back to like Cozumel, and like, I think I lean out all the time, like, I can fight through this. Like, if I can do that, I can do this. And I think that a lot of us have that in our day-to-day lives, where we accomplish some big goal, or we surprise ourselves, or we climb some mountain and deal with the adversity, and then we just put it in the rear view and forget about it. Whereas like, that should be like, those wins are something that we should be thinking about all the time on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of like a roundabout way of saying like shit happens, but how are you going to deal with it, and how are you going to move forward despite all the adversity in our day-to-day lives?
Love the positivity that you're sharing here. And that story is just
Yeah.
incredible. I'm so glad you shared it. And Jared, thank you so much for joining us here. It's been an honor to have you here as our guest. And I look forward to seeing you in another cycling class on Thursday. You guys, it's on Thursday. What time on Thursday?
Oh man, now you're putting me on the spot. I'm pretty sure it's 11 Pacific. Let me double check. I should know this.
11 Pacific.
It is 11 Pacific?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, cool. See, you know the idea.
Can I say one last thing? Because I just always talk. I just want to say thank you as well. But it's so funny, and I think this is why we coach and what we do, and why people join us as individuals, and we all have the same thing to offer. But it's so cool. Like I said, I only did 2 classes of yours, I think, before today, and now hearing your story, getting to know about you and learn what you've overcome, and just all these things. Like, I'm literally like, want to go ride and do another class with you. And like, I want to be on the podcast on Thursday. And it's like, it just speaks to how much when you connect with somebody and they share, they're vulnerable and they're personal and they share struggles, but how they overcame, like, it really connects us. So I so appreciate you sharing all that you did with us. And it just makes me feel more connected to body, because I'm kind of a program whore. I like to follow all the programs, and it's like, I want somebody to tell me what to do every day. So if I go to body, am I going to know what, like, am I overtraining something, all that stupid stuff. And so, but this really makes me feel more connected to body, and want to get to know more of the trainers and the body trainers and stuff. And so I just so appreciate you being so open to come on with us. I didn't even know this was a thing until Kim was like, oh, wait, I can get you. I'm like, what? Yes, please, have him come on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mentioned it earlier, right? Like, I live for this, right? So if there's anything I can do for you guys, like, don't hesitate. Give me a shout. Like, I love, if you do follow my Instagram, you probably know that like, I live for hyping people up and like sharing their successes and things like that. So like, even if it's just something like that, like, let me know. I love to hear this. And I'm just a message away, right? Like, I want to make myself as available as possible for all of you. This is basically the experience of a freaking lifetime. Like, I'm just enjoying every single second of it. And if there's anything that I can do for anybody, like, just let me know, and I'm here to help. So.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you guys.
Oh.
Yeah, is there anything else? I'll let you close the call, Kelly.
I know, I was gonna say, I didn't know if you were closing or I was closing. It's all good. Thank you so much. Go crush the launch of Gut Protocol. Be on Jared's class on Thursday. I'm gonna go see if I can get on the podcast for it. Right now, could be full. I don't know already, but thank you so much, and everybody have an amazing night. Oh, do you have one more thing?
Yeah, the podcast opens 24 hours and 4 minutes before showtime. So for Wednesday at
so tomorrow
10:56 Pacific time, and that's when you can get in and sign up.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.